Hello again. So it's really difficult to curate all the material that I could possibly include in this class. There is just everything imaginable about what it means to be a human in terms of politically, socially, artistically, entertainment-wise, obviously too, is going on in the theater. So just as a way of sort of just throwing some ideas out at you, after all, this is called Introduction to Theater. I just want to mention a few things. I would love to delve deeply into each one of these topics, but there's just not enough time. And so I just want to point out a few things that's going on in the world. Um, Theater and Social Change from American Theater Magazine. You can access American Theater Magazine online. It is American Theater Magazine is where's the top of this? It's the Here's their font, easily recognizable. American Theater Magazine is the publication. It comes out 10 times a year for the professional theater across the country. It is not New York centric. Of course, their offices are in New York and blah blah blah, but they are it's published by Theater Communications Group, which is an organization that supports nonprofit theater around the country. And if you haven't watched the video yet on exactly what nonprofit theater is, it's not community theater, it's not non-professional, it's not commercial, but it is fully professional. And Theater Communications Group is an amazing organization that does many things that I just don't have time to tell you. They award scholarships, they give grants to theater companies, they do all kinds of things. They have an international, I guess, conference in the U.S. Usually, I think it has been elsewhere, once a year, where they bring artistic directors and people who run theater companies and everybody who runs a theater company. They come together and have these conferences where they discuss important issues. So I may be talking more about American Theater Magazine at other points in this course. Now, this article is from American Theater Magazine from 2014. So it is a bit old, but the reason I keep including it in the class is because I keep looking for a new article about theater and social change, and there just aren't any that are as comprehensive and, the title's down here, that are as comprehensive and sort of, this is not, 14 Theatrical Plans to Change the World. This actually could be more of a history document, something that was happening at this point in time, but it is an excellent introduction to how theater can really function and be a part of social change for good. Social, political, and civic causes at the forefront of their work. So here's an article that you're going to read about the work a lot of theater artists are doing and how important it is. It is a tiny bit dated, but nonetheless, it's a great article. So, another thing you may be wondering is how the heck has the American theater responded to the COVID crisis? We can't be together in public. If, it's kind of hard to do live theater. Some theater companies are opening, but there is a ton of stuff that has been streaming. Theater companies have really risen to the occasion, and I'm not going to take the time to delve deeply into this because anything that you can imagine they will do, they have done. When we first went into lockdown, and I think everybody was just sort of waiting to see what was going to happen. A couple weeks, whatever, a couple months, nothing went on. The first thing that sort of came out into the world were a lot of readings of plays through Zoom. Literally, just like you might see a Zoom class, you might take a Zoom class or whatever, it would be just a reading of a play done through Zoom. A lot of really awesome professional actors would be involved because they had nothing better to do. And there was a lot of controversy for the Actors Equity Association, which is the professional union for actors. Basically, probably if you are making your living doing theater, there are a lot of people who work very professionally, but that's not 100% of their income. But if you are a professional actor, you are probably a member of AEA. There was a big AEA, I don't even know if they have come around yet. They really dragged their feet on how they were going to allow their union members to work in the professional theater streaming. That idea of, do actors get royalties every time it's streamed or whatever? They really, and a lot of people agree with me, this is my opinion, but a lot of professional critics and actors too agree that Actors Equity Association really dropped the ball on it and really made it very difficult for actors to work. But anyway, that was sort of a tangent I wasn't planning on going into. But now that we're getting more used to Zoom and other streaming services, another way of sending theater out to the world, there are a lot of options to produce theater online. And then we ask ourselves, is it really theater? Is it not a movie? Is it whatever? Is it only going to stream? Is there only going to be a specific show time where everybody has to log in and watch at that time? Are we going to keep it up on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever forever so people can see? There's so many things to grapple with, how do we define what theater is at this time? But the main thing, and this is probably no surprise, that I want to impart to you is that there's a lot of theater still happening. And this is, why am I looking, what are you looking at? This is just, if you just Google streaming theater performances, look at all this stuff you get. It's just amazing. Now, a lot of this you may find filmed versions of productions that have been out in the world forever, like that Broadway HD service that I turned you all on to. There are ways to film a production where it really tries to give you the experience of sitting in a seat. There are ways to film it that might require a little bit more knowledge of video technology and stuff, where there's better editing, where sometimes you get a close-up, all those kind of things. And organizations like the Metropolitan Opera and the National Theatre of the UK have long been doing what is called simulcasts, where when it began, you could sit in a movie theater anywhere around the world, and they would stream the video of the live production, and it felt like you were there. That became difficult when you're dealing with time changes and all that kind of stuff. So suffice it to say, I know I'm rambling here, but there are as many ways as you can imagine technology being used. Theater companies, theater artists, producers are using it to make sure that theater is still alive and well. So that's the technology bit of it. Now, for a couple things that I wanted to point out about other things that are going on in the world, responses to the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think that's the last topic I'm going to cover here today. But so, just for example, let's look at the Public Theater's website. The Public Theater is in New York. They might possibly be best known for producing free Shakespeare in Central Park every summer, when that can happen. Their website is sort of a good example of what a lot of other theater companies around the country are doing. Practically every professional theater company, and you can just pause this if you want to read this, where I want to put myself. Just about every professional theater company and quasi-professional theater company has released a statement about how they support the Black Lives Matter movement. Some of them, it's easy to release a statement. Some of them are really moving forward with inclusive practices, such as making efforts to make sure that they are producing more writers of color. Oregon Shakespeare OSF Festival in Ashland recently hired an African American female artistic director to replace her outgoing director. That was before the murder of George Floyd, and there are a lot of theater companies that the murder of George Floyd and the sort of most recent push of the Black Lives Matter movement has really spurred them on to release these statements and perhaps make other changes within their organization. But with Oregon Shakespeare Festival, there has for years been a push for more diversity in the professional theater. Huge push towards producing more female writers. It is I could spend a whole week on just this topic, on how the American theater is really, really bad about producing straight white men, or white men. Even, gay men are pretty lucky when it comes to the American theater. But so the Black Lives Matter really sort of reignited this need for diversity and change within the structure of theater organizations. And if you look at their website as of today a little more closely, they have lots of different resources. The theater, the American theater, yes, it's an entertainment medium, but there's not the amount of money that you get in Hollywood, so there does tend to be more of a focus on, quite honestly, just making the world a better place. There can be more political, social underpinnings to the work of a theater company as opposed to a movie studio, for example. So you can click on all these, and I'll click on this one. Imagine why I would do that. It will tell you more about. It gives you links of other resources and things. So the American theater is really responding to what's going on in the world politically today, because there's so much happening right now. And so here's an example of one. The We See You White Theater campaign is it's a hashtag, it's a movement, I encourage you to look at this. Well, it's here, so you have to look at this statement they've created. And and here's the names of all the individuals who sort of had a voice in that. This is a bunch of theater artists of color, calling the American theater out for being so white. And it's been propelled by the murder of George Floyd, and then the Black Lives Matter, the resurgence and the important work that the Black Lives Matter movement is doing. So this is really interesting. So look at this. It's a really cool. It's not tongue-in-cheek. It's not meant to be sarcastic, but it's a very clever way of them pointing out, hey, well, we see what you're doing, and we're not going to let that continue. Take the Note campaign is similar, but it is happening on college campuses. Take the Note. I think this is the coolest hashtag I've ever heard. Take the Note is it's a very theater specific thing. When you direct a show, you give actors notes. So and you do that after every rehearsal, and giving notes is a thing. So the idea of giving notes to people who are running theater companies this is another American Theater Magazine article. And so read this. It's really interesting about how what's going on in the country is making its way not just into the professional theater, but into college theater organizations around the country. So that's just a super quick introduction. I'm at 14 minutes right now, but there's a lot going on in the world today, and the theater is responding to it. So I hope you enjoy looking over this stuff.